Welcome into the Skinny Podcast. It's the weekly Potpourri edition. I'm Richard Skinner, Local12.com digital sports columnist and editor with Rick Broering. As always, it's presented by Blake, the attorney Maislin. We've got some college football to talk about, some Bengals to talk about, a little Reds to talk about, but a lot of college basketball to talk about. And it won't include the Miami Redhawks again. You are a hater, Rick Broering. Just admit it.
No, actually, I don't know about it. Let's start off with Miami. Bringing that up because it is interesting as they continue to go undefeated. They get to 20-0 now. It's no longer just this like, okay, cute job, Miami. You didn't play anybody. You're 12-0. Good start to the season type deal. This is really getting into what do you do with them if they go up until the last game and then lose one game at the end of the season or something. Can you still make them that large bid? There's also the whole scheduling argument that Travis Steele has been running out there that no one will play us. You shouldn't penalize us for not being able to schedule more difficult games. Meanwhile, there are obviously counterexamples within their league of teams in their league who have played more difficult games, and you can always go get bought by someone, right? I'm sure Miami could have found someone that would have been willing to pay them $90,000 to come in and play them on the road in a difficult high major game. It's more difficult for them as a good mid-major coming into the season, but I think they could have. So what do you make of this whole argument? What side do you find yourself on? Are you of the opinion that they didn't play anyone and they're kind of still a fraud? What do you think of it all?
No, they didn't play anyone, but I wouldn't consider them a fraud. I mean, they've won some really tough games. Going to Kent, I don't think there's going to be a lot of teams that go to Kent inside the MAC this year and win a game there. I don't. Miami did. Now, we can argue they pulled one out of their ass to do it, kind of the same way as they did on Saturday when, Ian Elmer hits a three at the end of regulation to force overtime. They win at the overtime. But I got to give credit for winning those kind of games. I mean, I don't think those are lucky. I think those are gritty wins for me. I will be interested to see, to your point, that let's just assume that they don't win the MAC tournament and maybe lose 2 games. Let's go to that number. What will the resume look like? I just don't think it looks good enough, unfortunately, for them to get that.
If you're saying 2 losses, I don't think they have a chance at that point.
Yeah, no. I mean, you can argue if you lose the MAC title game and that's your only loss. But still, what does the resume? Let's look at the resume blindly against other teams. What does it look like from rank 1 wins or tier 1 wins to tier 2 wins to the multiple probably tier 4 wins they've gotten? I think you have to treat them like you do anybody else. Look at their sheet, see what it says, and if it doesn't match up and they only have that one loss, I'm sorry.
It's fascinating because even if like the concern would be if you let this happen, they didn't play anyone, maybe they lose their championship game in the conference tournament, and you still put them in as an at-large, the concern, I guess, then becomes, well, teams are going to start trying to schedule themselves in the tournament. You're going to have a lot of teams that won't play anyone. Skinny, if these teams can go undefeated an entire damn year, put them in the tournament. Like, to me, don't get me wrong, if they lose 2 games along the way, that's right. Different. But if they get all the way to the conference tournament and they haven't lost, I'm liable to just say put them in the damn tournament regardless of who they've played at the point. That's pretty tough to do regardless of how weak your schedule is. I
don't disagree, but I think you got to treat every team the same. Look at what the resume says. I think that's the only way you can do it.
Well, I think you are treating every team the same, but what do you do when a team hasn't lost at all, except for maybe that one game in the conference championship or whatever? And and looking at Miami right now, they have no quad 1 wins. They're 2-0 against quad 2 teams, 4-0 against quad 3. Everything else is quad 4. They're 11-0 there, 3-0 against non-D1s. So how do you view that? When you won all the games you were supposed to play, you didn't get those top tier games. I still think that's a resume that's unlike almost any other resume. And to me, I think it's good enough to put them in the tournament ahead of some of the weakest resumes that we're going to be talking about on the bubble.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree, and I hate to do that because I to your point, going undefeated, I don't care what conference you're in, what league you're in, is hard. It's probably going to be a moot point. They're gonna lose a few games, in my opinion, before this is all said and done. But it is incredible. I mean, they had 2 losable games that they just played, and they found a way to win both of them. And congratulations,
dramatic fashion.
Dramatic fashion. That's no
honestly,
question.
Good for them. They kind of needed it. Like, for a team that was going undefeated, winning as much as they were, there wasn't a lot of buzz being generated by it. For them to win those last 2 games in thrilling fashion to keep it alive definitely caught a few more eyeballs and added to the attention. The other part is they're doing it without their point guard, Evan Ipsaro, who tore his ACL, really good player. that's impressed me as much as anything, the way that they've been able to keep this going.
Yeah, I honestly thought when he got hurt, I thought they had no chance to win the MAC at that point. It was like, okay, cutesy story. They did all the stuff they did in the non-conference against basically nobodies, and now without Evan Ipsaro, I think he's averaging 14 and almost 5 assists a game, and was obviously their primary ball handler. All those things that there's no way they're going to survive in the MAC, especially on the road. And here they are 20-0. I don't want to discredit them. I just think you have to treat them like anybody else. I mean, the MAC is usually considered a one-bid league. There's been rare occasions where they've gotten 2 teams in, but it's considered a one-bid league. And I think if that's the way you kind of view the league, as a one-bid league, you storming through that league really doesn't impress me as much as it probably should, and as much as it probably will those that select teams for the tournament, because it's just not considered an elite league. And great, you storm through it. What does that even mean? Then you don't win your conference tournament? Sorry, that's the automatic qualifier. Change the qualifier rules if you want. Well,
I mean, that is true, but you keep going back to the idea that you got to treat them like everyone else. My point would be there's no one else like this. No one else goes undefeated.
They scheduled all those crap games.
Do what?
They scheduled all those crap games.
Sure, but even anyone else who plays a weak schedule is not going undefeated against their regular season slate. That would be my point. If you go through an entire regular season undefeated, there's not going to be anyone else who does that this year, more than likely, and certainly not in your situation as a mid-major.
Well, as I say, almost everybody else, majors to mid-majors, played a handful of tier 1 games, tier 2 games outside of conference. And then they do play a bunch of those inside of conference. They don't. Miami doesn't. They didn't. They chose not to. Don't give me the crap that you couldn't schedule. You could have found some people who would have scheduled you. I promise you.
I agree with that part. That's the part that I'm not willing to accept. Every coach likes to do this when they have a weak schedule, say no one would schedule us. And it's just not true. It may have been really difficult, and it may not have been on your terms. It may not have been ideal for you and your team, but you could have found someone to play you to ensure that your resume was going to be better than it is, and you opted not to go that route. So,
listen, I know NKU needed the money, but NKU went to play Tennessee at Tennessee.
Right. Oh, that's exactly right. I mean, you can always find a way, and again, that was their decision, and so now they have to basically be perfect because they opted to do it that way, and it's creating an interesting situation for certain.
I mean, I'm fascinated they're even ranked in the top 25 because I don't consider them to be a top 25 team. It shows you what rankings mean, to be honest with you.
So you don't like the top 25 ranking, then? You would not have them in there?
No. I mean, honestly, take them against most mid-pack SEC, Big 10, Big 12, and put them on a neutral floor and tell me what the point spread is in your opinion.
Yeah, 6.5, 7. But I agree with you there. I don't think they're a top 25 team either. I don't really care about the ranking thing. It doesn't bother me. But I get your point. Yeah.
And I can't do this the moment. You're usually better at this than me. Real quick, do you have Ken Palm up or close?
Yeah.
Tell me what they are in Ken Palm. I bet you. I'm just going to guess.
They're around I believe they're around 100. They're 90.
I was going to say I was going to guess not even top 70.
They're 90.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, Cincinnati. They're interesting to me too right now. Yes, I find this storyline. They beat number 2 Iowa State 79-70 on Saturday, which was maybe the most improbable win this entire season in college basketball. Then they turn around, they lose to Arizona 77-51 on Wednesday night, which was, I guess, what you'd expect out of that matchup at Arizona. Skinny, the thing I can't even figure out right now is, what do UC fans want to happen?
I know.
I saw fans that were thrilled about the Iowa State wins. I saw fans that were pissed off about the Iowa State win and say they better not win on Saturday or on Wednesday because I don't want Wes Miller to save his job. Where would you be at if you're a UC fan, and what do you think UC fans are thinking right now for the most part?
That is always a tough spot, right? I mean, I was in that spot with Mark Stoops, and then I suckered myself back in towards the end of the season if he's going to pull out a bowl bid and earn his job back. Yeah, I think I would just roll with the punches, to be honest with you, and whatever happens, happens, because what's going to happen is they're not going to win enough games to save his job. They're probably not even going to finish above 500. The Iowa State win was nice and deserved, and they earned it. And honestly, they were in the game into the second half against Arizona. I think it was 40-38 at one point before Arizona pulled away. It's just not good. I don't think you have to worry about it because they're just not good enough. The roster's not good enough. The guards aren't good enough.
Well, offensively, especially. They have no chance offensively against the good teams.
On the road, especially.
Yeah. When it gets tight, when it gets difficult, they fall apart offensively. What do you think, though? Do you think the majority of UC fans wanted them to win that game at Arizona or no?
I think you get suckered back in, right? Like, my gosh, if you go back to back and beat the number 2 and number 1 team in the country on back to back games, maybe this team does win enough to get into the NCAA tournament. Maybe they do earn enough Big 12 wins. They just beat number 2 and number 1 on the road, but you didn't. You beat number 2 at home. That happens on occasion, right? Who did Michigan slip up against recently? Wisconsin at home, I believe. It happens, but they're just not good enough. I mean, I don't even know if they're good enough to go beat Arizona State in this next game. I think Arizona State sucks.
Their coach is dark right now. I don't know if you saw that press conference after their loss, but yeah. UC was 4 for 21 from 3-point range, shot just 37% in the game against Arizona. 8 assists to 14 turnovers. Ooh. To me, that's kind of the story of the Wes Miller experience, and what we'll remember his tenure for is that they were athletic, they played defense, he had talent at times, but he never figured out how to run an offense against teams with a pulse.
Yeah, and I think listen, I thought it was certainly a desperate move to accept Jizzle James back, and I thought he would make them better because he has at least shown in the league that he can do it. He just isn't any good.
Well, last night there's a play where the ball goes out of bounds. They turn the ball over in transition. They tried to throw an advanced pass in transition ahead to Jizzle James. He kind of dogs it. The ball rolls out of bounds. I see Wes Miller over on the sideline motioning to him. You know, Wes is always having to pantomime everything. He coaches harder than everyone else because his players don't want enough, so he has to do it over there on the sideline for him. He's over there pantomiming to Jizzle to run harder. He's pumping his arms like this, saying, you got to run after that. It's like, that's good.
Yeah, that's not good.
Xavier was off over the weekend. They lost at Creighton 94-93 on Wednesday. What's your read on the job that Richard Pitino has done at Xavier? Because another weird situation where Xavier's losing all these games, but last night was kind of an interesting inflection where you had lost to Creighton by 41 in the first meeting in your own gym. You turn around, you should have won that game on the road in their gym. You lose because you don't box out on a free throw and you give up a stick back, but certainly a big turnaround. How do you view the Richard Pitino experience so far?
I think he's done a good job. I mean, the fact that the way they play now from a pace perspective is the right way to play. I mean, he's just trying to outscore people, and they've almost pulled it off in some instances. Last night, you should have pulled it off. And I do think it's impressive. You get your doors blown off by the same team in your gym. I think the worst loss in Cintas Center history, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And then go to their place, and you're I don't call it a blockout away, but I guess a blockout away from winning the game at Creighton. I think he's done a fine job. He just doesn't have a very good roster, and that's what he's got to fix moving forward.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like there's a lot to like in terms of the adjustments he's made, the way this team looked so putrid to start the year, and they've come along. He's given them a chance, and I think a lot of it can be attributed to the changes that he was willing to make, both with personnel, who's getting the minutes, and completely changing the style that they were wanting to use specifically on the offensive end, but also on defense too. He's done a lot of things to make them more competitive, and I think from that standpoint, you're thinking, great, this guy can coach. I like the improvements they're showing, the game-to-game improvement from the first game against Creighton to the second game against Creighton, the way they attacked the individual one-on-one matchups in Creighton's defense that gave them so much trouble the first time and cut off their ball movement was great. All those things are great, but you still have the fact of the most important thing in the current era is being able to put together a roster, and this roster isn't good enough, so you have concerns about that aspect of it going forward. Is like, okay, what's this going to look like when you do have a full year and you don't have to assemble 11 or 12 guys in one offseason? Are you better at putting together a roster under those circumstances? And then also, I mean, there is the aspect of you have the biggest loss in Cintas Center history, 41 points to Creighton. You have the second biggest loss in Cintas Center history this year against UConn. So like, they have had these blowout losses, which are not what you want to see as a fan. And I'm not really sure there's a right way to feel about it right now. If you're a Xavier fan, I think there are a lot of different ways you could sort of read the situation.
Yeah, I mean, the whole roster building thing, I think anytime you take over first year, I think it's hard. And so I'll give you a little bit of a pass there, or maybe even a full pass there. I just think with what he's done in season, he's done a really good job, to your point, of adjusting to it. And there are going to be nights when, if they don't shoot the ball they're going to get the doors blown off by good teams. And it's happened twice. And it shouldn't happen at home because you should score at home, but it did. And yet you go on the road last night and put up 92 points. I think we've seen this team now consistently enough offensively is going to score, and they get enough stops. And against some teams, they just can't.
In terms of putting the roster together, the one thing that I would be pretty excited about too is Trey Carroll. The way that, one, they identified him and he turned into a really good player. Like,
yes,
he didn't start most of the games last year at FAU. He only played 22 minutes per game. His season high was 24 points last year at FAU. So there wasn't this like track record of him scoring 25 plus points a game and looking like a go-to alpha scorer, and certainly not taking a jump up to the Big East and being able to do that. And yet they were able to identify him and develop him in this season into being able to put forth those types of performances and certainly help his pro prospects out. If I'm a kid in the transfer portal next year, I'm going to like that when I see that. If I'm Xavier's coaching staff, I'm going to use that as a selling point when we're trying to recruit other guys, saying, hey, look what we did for this guy from Florida Atlantic. Come here. We do that with guys, Donovan Dent, JT Toppin, all the guys that they did that with at New Mexico. Kind of a similar thing here with Trey Carroll at Xavier. So I think that's been a really positive sign from the roster building standpoint and what they have to sell going forward. Kentucky, Skinny, came back to beat Tennessee 80-78 on Saturday, and then turned around and beat Texas 85-80 on Wednesday. They've now won 4 straight SEC games after starting 0-2 in conference play.
Yeah, I mean, what a turnaround. You pulled 2 right out of your rear end, the LSU game and then Saturday being down as much as they were at Tennessee, down 17.
That game was crazy.
At one point. It was. I mean, I'll give Denzel Aberdeen this. He's played great of late. I mean, he really and truly has. I think he's been a big difference maker for them.
He is. I mean, he's making big shots. He's had some big defensive plays, but it kind of came from out of nowhere.
Right.
Because I didn't think he was at all that type of player a few weeks ago. It seemed like they needed somebody to step up and fulfill that role and be a little more of a, hey, I'll put the team on my back when things are rough. And I was thinking that was going to be more Otega Owe, but it's been Aberdeen the last few games more than anything.
Yeah, but Owe's still getting his. I mean, he's still, like last night he had 18, and then you're getting a performance from somebody else, whether it's Diobate one night, Malachi Moreno one night, last night it was Colin Chandler. That's how you string wins together. And momentum's a hell of a thing, man. You steal that win at LSU, you feel invincible, and then you come back against Tennessee, you're feeling even better. You come home and Texas can score the ball, and you knew that was going to happen. So you're going to have to play a high-scoring game, and you do. Momentum's is a heck of a thing. It really truly is.
Tennessee's having more issues than I expected after seeing them in person earlier this year. I thought they were going to be really good because of their size, and Nate Ament, their 5-star freshman, is a true stud. But that is still an impressive win for Kentucky to be down in that arena, which is a hard place to win, to make that comeback in the second half. I was really impressed by that. I guess the bad news for UK fans is one of the guys that's been contributing, Cam Williams, broke his foot. It's now going to be out for the rest of the season.
It's crazy, man. The injuries are just piled up like nuts. I mean, you haven't had Quaintance for a while. Obviously, the shoulder with Jalen Lowe has been a thing. And honestly, as good as it sounds, maybe it's made this team stronger because it's defined roles more, as opposed to having 11 guys you're trying to get minutes for and not knowing all the roles. Now the roles are really smallly defined because you don't have a large rotation you're going to anymore.
I know UK fans are always going to be irrational when it comes to wins and losses, and they're not going to give you any excuses. But to some extent, it almost feels like the injuries have been a little bit of a grace for Mark Pope, because otherwise this is all on him, I think, in the eyes of most UK fans. But with all the injuries that they've had this year, that's got to be a little bit of the story and a little bit of an excuse for why this year maybe has gone south on him, or at least has been a little bit more bumpy than they expected.
Rick, before the pass was made to Malachi Moreno, I had convinced myself this is not an NCAA tournament team. It was just going to play its way out of the tournament. Now it keeps playing its way from bracket matrix. Last week they were a 10 seed. They're up to the 8 seed line now, and with a chance to still climb. Do I think irrationally that they can go to Arkansas and win, or go to Florida and win? No, probably not. But do I now think this team's going to win the games it needs to win? Absolutely, and maybe steal 1 or 2. Yeah, I do think that now.
Mark Pope made some comments on the current state of college hoops after another G Leaguer got a temporary restraining order to play at Alabama. That just happened this week. he brought up the idea of the NCAA still getting to decide who gets into the tournament, and basically saying like, hey, the NCAA should just punish these teams and not select them for the NCAA tournament if they want to actually enforce their rules. And they're saying, hey, we can't do it without a judge's orders. Mark Pope brought up the idea of like, yes, you can. Don't choose those teams for the NCAA tournament at the end of the year. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. There's just there's got to be a way to close this loophole, and it's going to have to be done by legal means, obviously. But there's a loophole right now, and teams are exploiting that loophole, and it's hard to blame teams for exploiting that loophole. I mean, I don't blame Alabama. I don't blame Baylor. They're not breaking the rule.
They're not. But like, I am so sick of coaches getting up in front of microphones complaining about the current state of the sport when they're the ones that are the problem. They're the ones that keep choosing to do this. They keep saying like, we're taking away opportunities from high school kids. Good. Then give them back to the high school kids. You're in control of that, jackass. And I understand they've got a job. They've got a responsibility to win games. You got to be competitive. I really do understand that part of it. But there is some line that you don't have to cross. Like, you guys are knowingly going into a gray area, knowingly doing something that none of you believe is right, none of you believe you should be doing, but you're going to continue doing it anyways. Why can you not be enough of a man to stand up and say, you know what, I'm not going to do that. This is not how our sport's supposed to go. I'm going to continue to do it the right way.
But who says they're doing it the wrong way? Again, they're not breaking a rule. I don't like it. Don't get me wrong. I don't like it, but they're not breaking a rule. I mean, how hard is it to put a rule in place that says if you've been paid by a professional league, you cannot play in the NCAA? I know then the argument back is, well, we're getting paid in the NCAA, so what difference does it make? I understand that. I just don't understand why you can't have a rule that says that. You go play for a professional league in any way, shape, or form and are paid by that professional league, you cannot come back and play for a college team, period.
Because they keep losing court battles.
I know it.
With that exact argument.
No,
I mean,
you're right.
Yeah, and here's the other part about the whole like Charles Bediako thing at Alabama and Mark Pope's suggestion that they keep him out of the tournament. I did see somebody else who was bringing up the court documents from the restraining order, and it specifically states in there that you cannot penalize Alabama or Charles Bediako for the restraining order and him participating in these games as part of the ruling. So I think if Alabama has a tournament resume, a clear tournament resume, and you don't select them as an at-large bid, you're going to get sued again, probably.
Correct. So, that's right. No, you're right.
I don't know that that's actually an option like Mark Pope's putting out there. It seems like it's a good way to save face and look like a smart guy in front of the camera. But Skinny, that's you said, who's to say that they're doing something wrong or they're doing it the wrong way? I'd be okay with that if they would stop getting in front of microphones and telling us that they don't like it and this is the wrong way to do things. They're the ones that are telling us things are wrong and this is a gray area. If they don't believe that, then quit saying it. If they all think this is the right way to do it, then just shut up about it and keep doing it. But they all complain about it happening and then they go and do it.
And there were some rumblings. I don't know how deep they were, if it was just rumor stuff, that Kentucky at one point was trying to find a point guard somewhere when Jalen Lowe got hurt. Like they were trying something similar to find a point guard on the market.
Nate Oates got up when I think it was when the thing happened at Baylor. When they added Najee. Nate Oates got up and said something about how this is terrible because it's taking away opportunities from high school kids. And now he's doing the exact same thing. So again, I just can't stand that part of it.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
NKU will take on the top team in the Horizon League, Wright State, on Saturday at 7. The Norse were off this week. Wright State lost to Cleveland State Wednesday night, which is big. So NKU could get within a half game of the Raiders with a win on Saturday. And also, I mean, they're starting to look like separation. Wright State was clearly going to be the team at the top. Also, a wild league night last night kind of threw those standings back into the mix there at the top, especially if NKU is able to go on the road and get a win.
Yeah, you can't keep losing games like Robert Morris, though. You just can't at home. You can't keep losing home games. You can't hope that Robert Morris is going to come in and have two guys fixing the game again. It's just not going to happen.
We've got a question later on about the point shaving scandal in college basketball.
So it was funny though. I will say this because you and I texted each other last week about the Robert Morris NKU game. And I'm not going to name who you say. You thought it was a different player. You're like, yeah, I was talking and we thought it was this guy throwing up wild shots. Turns out it was the other guy.
Well, you texted me about it and said, did you think anything did you think anything of this? Did you know anything when it happened? I said, actually, yes. We were all talking about it when it happened. This guy had a crazy stat line. We said actually that night, was that dude shaving points? That was one of the most insane games we've ever seen. Lo and behold, I go and read the article after after we had texted back and forth about it. Read the article, realize it was a different player that got busted for shaving points, Marquise Hastings. I thought it was their point guard. So it turns out I don't know. Maybe another player's still going to get in trouble for shaving points because that player was being investigated earlier this year. It's Cam Woods, who transferred, and he was investigated, had to sit out too. So maybe he's going to be investigated and nailed for point shaving as well. But yeah, Marquise Hastings was the one who actually got in trouble. So I didn't notice anything from him in that game.
Yeah, the Athletic did a story on the whole point shaving thing, and it brought that game up in particular. And I guess the author said he went back and tried to watch a bunch of the games involved and said there wasn't really a whole lot of stuff noticeable. In fact, the Hastings kid, I guess you could argue he did shave by not taking shots, but he apparently, I guess, didn't shoot early in the game. And said his first shot hit off the bat was a 3-pointer that hit off the backboard and didn't even hit the rim. But sometimes guys take wild shots and miss. That's the thing I was wondering. I'm kind of glad he took that deep dive to why. And that's why I asked you, like, could you notice? And obviously you did. I mean, something perked up about you that thought maybe something was going on. But
it was the wrong guy.
Right. Wrong guy. Exactly.
No, seriously, though. Their point guard, I think, took 26 shots in that game. And some of the shots were the craziest shots you've ever seen. And like the week before or 2 games before he had done something very similar where it was like, what is he doing? Why is he purposely trying to lose the game? Because the decisions he was making were out of control. And again, 26 shots is just absurd. Crazy. Lo and behold, that's not who got busted for shaving points. So that was a conversation that anyone who I talked to that watched that game live and I shared at that time. So it was not like something that was just like a one-off, oh, maybe something was fishy there. And I made the comment. I was like, no, we all talked about it. So that was definitely an interesting Robert Morris team to put it lightly.
Yeah, this feels like a year in the Horizon League, though, back to your original question, where the 4 seed's going to play the 7 seed for the championship. It just feels like it's that year.
I don't know. See, I started the season thinking that there was going to be a ton of parity. And then I've gotten to the point where it feels a lot like Oakland and Wright State are the teams that deserve to be viewed as the top 2 and probably clearly are the top 2. And then I think there's like I want to put NKU right behind them as the most dangerous team. That's what the analytics say, according to KenPom. And the thing that I go back to is no one else in the league has 4 dudes on the offensive end. NKU's the only team in the entire nation, Skinny, with 4 guys averaging 14 points or more.
That's crazy.
The only team in the entire country. And like, to me, in the Horizon League, when you have 4 guys that can score it like that legitimately, and you play that up-tempo style, and the thing about NKU is, you're right, they've got to find a way to win some of these close games that they're losing, because when it's a close game and they're not playing as well, they have to battle a little bit. They've had some late game scenarios that haven't gone their way. But when they've played well, they're blowing these teams out. They blew out Detroit Mercy. They blew out Youngstown State. There's another one a few games ago that they blew, but like they're handling, Milwaukee. They handled Milwaukee, who's a little banged up right now, but they're handling the teams that they are beating. The problem is in some of these close games, they're not making the late plays that you need to make to come out with the wins, especially on the defensive end.
I think 3 of their 4 league losses, one is by 1 point, another one's by 2 points, and then 3 to Robert Morris, right? I mean, right. That's teetering on. They would be the best team in the league at the moment if you pull those 3 out. Exactly.
And you can look at that and say, okay, maybe there's some shooting percentage fluctuations where you just make a few more shots, they happen to go in instead of go out, you win those games, and it's completely different. So maybe it's a luck thing. But I think there's legitimacy to the idea that NKU has not been good defensively in those late game situations. They're giving up too many wide open threes when, hey, it's crunch time. The only thing that can beat us here is them making an open 3. Don't give up the open 3. They still do it sometimes. They've got to fix that. And the other thing that I talked about with Mo Egger a little bit yesterday that's unique for NKU this season is almost every other year in Darren Horn's tenure, they've had like 1 or 2 guys on the offensive end that that's their guy. So when it gets to late game situations, they're just running something for that guy, getting him the ball in a spot that he likes any way they can. This year, you've got 4 different dudes that are all playing a little bit differently from game to game. One game, certain 1 or 2 guys have the hot hand. The other guys maybe have the matchup you like better. Maybe you've run something against the defense you're playing that's been working well that game. So there's a lot more thought process, I think, going into the end of game situations and what you want to run. And then also, you're starting to learn who can handle those moments. Like some of these guys have consistently failed in those end of game situations, even though they're one of your best scorers. So now maybe it's time to move on to someone else. And I think they've done some of that, but that's a little bit of a process of one they've had to go through this year that they haven't in other seasons recently. So
well, the other thing, and you brought this up. I mean, the matchup zone is not easy to play. When it's played right, it's a really good defense, but it's not easy to play. And obviously, they're not getting much better at it. I don't think, at least from the scores I'm watching. Would he consider junking that to do something else?
They're not junking it, but they've changed it. I mean, they're very different defensively this year. They've been switching up 3 defenses this season, more than they ever had. Usually it's just more of the matchup zone, and oftentimes it looks like the traditional sort of 2-3 matchup look. This year they're doing that look. They go to their 1-3-1 matchup zone look a lot more often. And then they're also matching up and switching all screens man to man a lot more often this season too, as they've had some issues with the 3-pointers. So I think this group, because of a lack of rim protection, because they are playing a smaller lineup, a couple of guys that maybe just aren't as good defensively in general, I do think that they are probably not going to get to where they sometimes get by the end of the year in terms of just being really tough defensively to score on, but they're so much better offensively and they're more athletic overall that I think you can sort of smoke and mirrors your way a little bit to being a similar team defensively just by changing it up, keeping teams off balance, and maybe generating a few more turnovers and transition opportunities.
I mean, they got to get better on that end. There's no doubt.
Yeah, but I mean, we're saying that they're number 1 in defensive efficiency in the league.
That's crazy.
So it's like, for all this talk about like they're so bad defensively, it's like it's a couple plays at the end of games. I agree, clean them up, but they're not terrible defensively. They're the best team in the league defensively, and that's
insane.
Yeah. So it's in league play, that is, but still, I mean, I think that is one of the points that people are kind of missing about this NKU teams when they see some of the close losses. Is it's like, oh, look at all these points they're giving up and everything. It's like, yeah, that's not great, but they're also scoring a ton of points, which is a pretty good thing to do in the Horizon League, especially when you get to tournament time. And if they clean up a few of these end of game scenarios, like we talked about, they could very well be the top team in the league from a standings perspective. Any other thoughts on the college basketball world, Skinny?
No, it's been kind of a busy week for the locals for the most part.
It was fun week in college basketball. I thought with the local teams struggling and not being as exciting of a year from what the NCAA tournament might look like, that maybe this would be a rough month or so to get through of college basketball talk. But the last week and a half was great. I mean, great hoops action, great storylines.
I will say this. Usually there's some marquee games on Sunday. There was a ton on Saturday. I mean, you could, and plus the football was on. And the football was on Sunday too. But usually you get like a couple of really good Sunday games. This past Sunday slate was trash, man. Yeah. The only game I watched was Penn State, Maryland. And the only reason it kept my interest was some dude from Maryland made like 9 3-pointers and scored 43 points and had a chance to set the school record. And they ran doubles at him at the end of the game to make sure he didn't.
My brother just had his first child, and so they were, in their bunker over there. We went over to visit them on Sunday, and I got over there and he said, "Yep, I bet the under on this game, and Maryland's already scored about 150 in the first 10 minutes." So
I think they scored 56 in the first half.
Yeah, so that went well. All right, let's switch gears here to college football and the national championship game. Indiana beats Miami 27-21. Kind of a boring game initially, slow game to start, but ended up being an exciting finish there. I couldn't tell for most of the season whether or not I disliked / hated Fernando Mendoza. I now love how committed he is to the bit. Like the whole just, oh gosh, golly, gee, Whitakers, and then he changes his LinkedIn profile after the game. It's so funny to me now. Like now that I realize he's self-aware and committed to the bit, I'm all in on Fernando Mendoza. I think he's hilarious.
That was a hell of a run, man.
Hell of a run. The other thing that was so impressive, Skin, is how tough he was in this game. He took so many late hits. I thought Nevin Shapiro was back. Thought Chris Ricks was out there or something. Like it really looked like there was a bounty out on his head, the way they were hitting him after plays, and he never flinched.
Yeah, no. At halftime, I thought this game's playing out exactly like I thought. Indiana got the lead. The defense is going to continue to control the game. They're going to pull away and win this. I think I predicted, 27-10 or 27-13 whenever we did our predictions. And it felt like, okay, this is exactly what's going to happen. And then it's 10-7, and then the block punt. And I thought, okay, they just righted the ship again. Here we go. They're going to pull away in the fourth quarter. Kudos to Miami, too, man. They could have been dead in the water and fought back.
Mario Cristobal has always been that guy who's viewed as a good recruiter but can't actually coach and win big games. Do you think that's changed all of a sudden here after that? Because this was a hell of a run that they just put on.
Yeah, no, I think he's a good coach. I still
Really,
don't
really
understand.
good
I
coach.
still don't understand the decision. What was it last year when he didn't take the knee? I mean, that still is the dumbest decision I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to let one decision define him. I know that the MO has been big games. He finds a way to muck it up. But he really didn't. I think the best team won, and his team almost won. So kudos to him.
And that's the great thing about Indiana this year. They beat every team you needed to beat to consider yourself
Right.
the best team in the sport. There's
You're
no
right.
way to look at this and say, oh, it was a fluke, or they just got the right draw, or the rest of the teams weren't that good that year. Nothing like that happened. It was like they had to beat, what was it, 5 or 6 top 10 teams, I think.
Think about this. I mean, you beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. You punish Alabama. You punish a really good Oregon team that, honestly, I believe might be the second best team in the country still, to be honest with you. And then you beat Miami, which earned its way to the championship game. That's a hell of a 4-game run right there alone.
And you beat Oregon earlier in the year too.
Right, at their place.
Yeah, I mean, like the run that they had throughout the entire season to get to this point was awesome. That it wasn't an easy run, that it wasn't kind of fluky or questionable. It was like, no, you had to go prove it against all the good teams. And
you did.
And, you know, as much as everyone wants to do revisionist history on Ohio State and like, oh, they weren't actually that good. Ohio State's defense was awesome. We're going to watch multiple Ohio State defenders play in the NFL for a long time and be really good. And Indiana beat them straight. I mean, like that Big Ten championship game was real. That was awesome to see. And then, you know, like, I don't know. It just, the first time champions in 30 years since Florida did it in 96. That's just, it's crazy to me that as much as we talk about the terrible NIL transfer portal era of college athletics and everything, that you get a story like this taking place. It's so cool.
The last 2 undefeateds in college football and college basketball are both Indiana. That's crazy.
Don Fisher, man.
Yeah, Don Fisher's still calling games.
Called them both.
Yep.
Called them both. I got to meet him.
He's one of my favorite. I like him. I think he's a really good play-by-play guy.
He's really good and just all class. I mean, just one of the coolest guys. I got to meet him 2 or 3 years ago when NKU played at Assembly Hall. We were broadcasting pretty close to them. Jim and I went over and shook his hand. It was just he's one of those names that you hear, and I didn't even know a lot about him probably before that. I mean, I knew he was their broadcaster. You had heard his name come up, but he's one of those names that even if you're not from that area or the region, you just hear it over the years. People talk about Don Fisher, Fish.
And I don't know why, but there used to be an FM station in the Southeast Indiana marketplace that carried Indiana. I used to listen to Indiana games all the time. Grew up listening to Don Fisher do Indiana games because there weren't a lot of games on TV back then. If Kentucky didn't play, find Don Fisher on the radio. And I grew up a huge Don Fisher fan, and I haven't really listened to him in years. I knew he was still doing games. It's kind of disappointing because you hop in the car, you find the Indiana game on, or even at home it was a good game, turn the Indiana game on. But that is crazy to think he called both of those undefeated seasons, 50 years apart.
He's still really sharp too. I mean, he sounds great on his broadcast. And when we met him, like the first thing you see is like, one, that guy's really impressive and like classy, but he's also like super fit. He is not like some old haggardly looking journalist or broadcaster like we typically view most of the sports guys that we work around. He's an impressive dude, and that was cool for him to get that opportunity too.
So what's more impressive, what Indiana basketball did 50 years ago or what Indiana football just did?
Indiana football, right? Because Indiana basketball was already a power basketball program. They weren't looked at as like the worst basketball program out of the high majors. Football has been quite literally just a laughing stock for basically its entire existence. It's never been considered a good football program, ever.
And I'll be honest, that era of Big Ten basketball was good. I mean, they ended up playing Michigan in the final that same year they went undefeated. So obviously the Big Ten was good, but it feels like the bottom of the Big Ten back then, there was a bigger bottom to it where you had some nights off. That run they just made through the Big Ten championship game, that was a grind. I mean, that is an absolute and utter grind. Back then as well, you didn't have the 68-team tournament, so you didn't have the chance to play maybe the third best team from the SEC, which might be just as good as you are, but they didn't get in by hell. Maryland had great teams back then. One year, Maryland and North Carolina State were arguably the 2 best teams in the country, played each other in the ACC championship game, and only one of them got to go.
Right. I think it's got to be the football, just because the basketball, you already had the pedigree, you have the recruits, you have the talent.
That team was great. I mean, that team was great.
You can look at the football and say it's all about money now, and you paid for this, and Mark Cuban handed it to you and all of that. But still, Skinny, how many teams are spending ungodly amounts of money and they don't get it right like this? I mean, Curt Cignetti is just, that part of the story is so incredible to me. He's 64 years old. He got a $2 million bonus just for winning the championship. He got about $3.7 million in bonuses throughout the postseason with all the winning they did. And he's already making about $11.6 million per year from the new contract extension that he signed. This guy just completely went from unknown to the biggest name in college football as a coach and one of the biggest names in all of sports, and completely changed his entire family's trajectory and long-term wealth in like a matter of 2 years or something. Like,
yeah, no, I mean, listen, I didn't know Curt Cignetti from anybody else 3 years ago. And the other part too is, you talk about getting it right. Did you know who Fernando Mendoza was until this year?
No.
Of course not. So it's not like he took some household name kid and go, all right, now you're going to go win the Heisman this year. That's him spotting what he thought was going to be a good fit and then helping develop that good fit into a Heisman Trophy guy who led you to a national championship.
It's incredible. People were talking about what NFL team's going to get him next or what's going to happen. I mean, he just signed that extension.
He said he's a college guy.
It's a $15 million buyout for him to leave. And he has said he's going to retire at Indiana. He's one of the few guys that I actually believe when he says something. I actually think whatever he has told us to this point is probably the truth. That's not to say something won't happen in a handful of years and things won't significantly change. But right now, I believe that his plan is to turn Indiana into a national power.
I agree with you.
What a story. I mean, I don't want to be prisoner of the moment. It's so easy to do the hyperbole thing in sports, and everyone does this on a national basis. But do you have a better sports story that immediately comes to mind than this?
And I'm going to come to the analogy of this. Growing up and then growing up a Kentucky fan, going to Kentucky and then covering Kentucky. They played Indiana in football, and it was always like if they could just win the Indiana game, that'll maybe get them to 6 wins and go to a bowl. That always was like the big swing game to me. The year 1984, when they finally did, or 83, I guess, when they finally broke through and went to a bowl game after going 0-10 and 1 the year before, they started 3-0, and one of the big wins in the 3-0 was a win at Indiana, and that got them on the way to getting to, what were they, 6-4-1 or 6-5-1 that year and going to a bowl game. It was a big deal to beat Indiana, and vice versa for Indiana. It was always a big game for them. Could they get to 6 or 7 wins and go to a bowl? Now, they had some good teams back then. Not great, good. Bill Mallory was a really good coach, and they had Anthony Thompson was, I believe, runner-up for Heisman Trophy in '87. So they had some good teams and good players, but nothing like this. And so I'm just trying to draw the analogy of why couldn't Kentucky do this, and why could Indiana do this? Right? I mean, I know the money's a big thing, and Kentucky doesn't have a bunch of billionaires hanging around. They got one, Joe Kraft, and he's given the university a whole lot of money already. And Mark Cuban money is real, but it's the sign of the times, man.
Yeah, but to your point, like Curt Cignetti wasn't the most expensive coach that you had to go out and get and find. Fernando Mendoza wasn't the most expensive quarterback out there in the transfer portal that they went out and got. So while it is dependent upon Mark Cuban's money, and that significantly helped all of this, they're far from the highest spenders, and it's far from like this was just a championship that was bought. They clearly identified the right guy and built this thing the right way. I can't wait to see how sustainable it is, because in the transfer portal era, I don't know that anything's very sustainable anymore. But man, this guy seems to know what he's doing.
He sure does.
That's pretty cool. All right, Bengals. Zach Taylor had granted Bengals offensive coordinator Dan Pitcher permission to seek coordinator jobs with other teams that permit him to call plays. On Wednesday, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers announced that they had completed a virtual interview with Pitcher for their coordinator position. And then just this morning, it's recording on Thursday, it was announced that he did not get that job. But Skinny, I'm still curious, what are your thoughts on this whole concept of Dan Pitcher potentially wanting to leave and feeling like he needs to move on from the Bengals?
Well, I think there's a couple things. I mean, most guys who are offensive coordinators are the play callers. It's not always the head coach, but the head
Right.
coach calls plays here. So it's a chance for him to go call. I mean, if he was going to make the lateral move to just go be offensive coordinator in Tampa with no play calling duties, I go, what are you doing? I don't think he would take that job. And right or wrong, it just seems like when new coaches are getting hired, it's because they were a play caller on one side of the ball or the other, a defensive coordinator calling plays or an offensive coordinator calling plays, not just an OC. I don't know if Eric Bieniemy never got a head coaching job because he didn't interview worth a damn. I don't know if he got interviewed because of the Rooney Rule only. That's only why they brought him in as a token interview. I don't think that was the case. But he also wasn't the play caller in Kansas City. Andy Reid was. And I for whatever reason, that just seems like it's looked down upon. And I think Zach understands that if this guy's going to get a chance to be a head coach, he probably does need to go call plays somewhere. Now, Brian Callahan got the job in Tennessee without calling plays, and then tried to call plays and it didn't work out so well. I also think the grain in the interview here is, again, doing Dan Pitcher a solid to maybe get him on a step closer to becoming a head coach. And he also has a ready-made candidate waiting in the wings to replace him in Brian Callahan.
Yeah, I think it's more, fans are more interested, though, in what this means for the cohesiveness of that offensive unit. And Joe Burrow, Dan Pitcher, and Zach Taylor, like, are they all on the same page? How confident do you feel about all of that right now in that relationship?
Yeah, I don't think this to me did nothing other than Zach trying to do Dan a solid, Dan wanting to call plays. And again, he does have a guy who's worked with Joe Burrow waiting in the wings and Brian Callahan. And so it would have been a totally seamless transition if that was the case. I still think Brian winds up on this staff in some capacity.
There's a pretty easy way for Zach to do Dan a solid if he thinks he needs to call plays.
Well, there's that, but that's not going to happen. So it is what it is.
Interesting that's not under consideration, though.
Well, you're right. I know that's what I know. That was the takeaway from some fans of, oh, great, Zach still wants to call. He's always going to want to call plays, folks. Whether you like it or not, that's just, he wants to call the plays.
I mean, do you believe that there would be any difference if Dan Pitcher was calling the plays versus Zach Taylor?
Know. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know.
I guess it's impossible to know.
Right.
AFC, NFC championship games. Any thoughts there on what we got going in the NFL still?
Yeah, I mean, I feel for Denver. I mean, you got there was a story CBS Sports did earlier this week when Jarrett Stidham was named the quarterback. Jarrett Stidham's not thrown a pass in the league since 2023, and they bandied about other candidates to maybe bring in and try to let that guy be a starter. And one of them was Ryan Tannehill, and they made a point of, well, he hasn't thrown a pass since the end of the 2023 season. Well, neither's Jarrett Stidham. So, I mean, I get it. It was fodder. It was interesting to look at. Cam Newton's name was thrown in there. Colin Kaepernick's name was thrown in there. Those are interesting names to bandy about. I would feel for that fan base. Like, you've got a really good football team that was going to be hard, even at home, to beat New England. I think it's now going to be impossible with Jarrett Stidham playing quarterback.
Just to be clear, if you're a fan of that team, you don't want them to try to bring in someone else for one game, right?
No, of course not.
You gotta put the guys in the room.
Yeah.
Like,
No. But I mean, the goofy part was he got hurt on the next to last offensive play of the game, played it out, and then like right after the game, he's got to have ankle surgery. What?
Yeah, it was weird. Someone had a replay of the play where they thought he got hurt. And it wasn't much to it. It looked like he just kind of turned things, but then you can kind of see him walking towards the sideline, limping a little bit gingerly, and like with each step, it's like a thing where he thought he was going to walk it off, and it just doesn't go away, and he keeps sort of like wincing, like, what the hell's going on with that? And man, what a terrible. I mean, he's so young still, but skinny. Joe Burrow once had this where you get to the Super Bowl and you're young, you think, okay, this is how it's going to be for the next however many years, and now we're talking about whether Joe Burrow will ever even get close to that spot again. It sucks to miss out on those opportunities when you actually get that chance and feel bad for him. I don't know how you feel about it, but the way I was viewing it, I don't know who the favorite is. And if they have Bo Nix still, I don't know if there is. It feels like any team could have won the Super Bowl at that point.
Yeah.
Now I don't think the Broncos have a chance, but I think the other three teams do. Do you think there's a favorite right now?
I mean, I guess I would go New England only because I think they win this game and they're in. The other game is just such a toss-up to me. I mean, it's got the other game, the Seattle Rams game is going to be fascinating. I mean, the Seattle defense has been lights out of late, but then you have the, oh God, what will Sam Darnold do negative factor, right? I think that's the part that everybody's waiting for is when does Sam Darnold have that 3 or 4 interception game? I mean, he had that on that Thursday night game against them, right? Where he made a bunch of mistakes and yet they still found a way to win it. And I'll give the Rams a lot of credit. I mean, they could have folded when that crazy touchdown happened at the end of regulation against the Bears, and they didn't. I mean, they found a way to win the thing in overtime. If I'm the Bears, I think I would have gone for 2 right then and there. You got a shell-shock defense, get a chance to win the game, and you choose to go to overtime. I think I would have tried to win it then and there. I just think that Seattle defense is playing so well, especially at home, that I think you get yourself a Seattle-New England matchup.
No, I think I'm with you on that. Definitely the New England part of it. I feels like I thought this was their year before the playoffs started, and nothing that I've seen has changed that. And what a run for that fan base, man.
I know.
Just when you think it's over and you've got to come back to the commoners and be a normal NFL fan, you're right back at the top of the world again. It's just incredible.
They're so solid. I mean, listen, C.J. Stroud helped them. He looked, honestly, I've never seen a quarterback perform that poorly in such a and have the talent level that he does. He was awful. And even after he threw that the fourth interception, the next 2 passes he threw, he short hopped receivers like he was so scared to throw it to where he was supposed to throw it. I thought they were going to have to yank him.
What do you think they are contemplating what the next move is there, or do you just got to live with that?
I think you just it was
develop them through it.
Yeah, I think you do. I think that defense is still legit enough to make another run. They're going to be here for a bit.
All right, real quick on the Reds before we get to Ask Skinny Anything. It was Reds Fest this past week, and I know you love that. It came out that the Reds and Elly De La Cruz had some type of contract talks during the offseason, and Elly De La Cruz turned down an extension last spring that would have surpassed Joey Votto's 10-year, $225 million deal to become the largest in Cincinnati's history. That was what was reported by C. Trent Rosecrans of The Athletic. Skinny, any thoughts on Elly De La Cruz turning down that offer from the Reds, allegedly?
Yeah, I believe the reporting, but I also believe the Reds are trying to win a PR battle with fans right now. Like, we were going to pay this much for Kyle Schwarber, and we offered Elly the biggest contract in team history. Well, was it the market value that Scott Boras was looking for? Or did you just know we're gonna throw a number at him that will be bigger than the Joey Votto contract, knowing full well he's going to say, no, I'm not doing that, especially not now. And I think they're so full of BS on these fronts. Like, okay, if you were going to pay Kyle Schwarber $130 million, what happened to that money? Why did you not go get somebody else in this offseason? And if you're going to offer Elly that contract and knowing he turned it down, and probably you're never going to be able to re-sign him, and you still have 4 more years of club control, okay, well, that was a pot of money you were willing to commit to somebody. Why can't that pot of money be used to better your ball club? So I think they're playing this whole, look at us, we're trying to sign our superstar, and we tried to sign home run hitting Kyle Schwarber, and we're just not, because you knew you couldn't in either case. So it all sounds good. It all sounds like we're trying. No, you're not, because you're bringing basically the same stupid offense back that plagued you last year.
The only thing this did for me, and I think everyone was of the opinion that Elly De La Cruz was never going to re-sign long-term with the Reds, and he'll eventually hit free agency and then be gone to the Dodgers or whatever big market team he wants to choose, is this was kind of the final, like, they made the statement finally of like, oh yeah, the Reds aren't going to re-sign Elly De La Cruz at all. Like, that's, to me, that's what this was. This was like kind of, like you said, the Reds putting out their PR statement of like, oh, we tried, here you go, just so you guys know, and now it's public, and I really don't.
I mean, I'd like to know what the numbers were. How about give us the numbers that you were going to offer him, and then we can decide, was it a fair market offer or not? I mean, if they offered him $1 billion for whatever, you'd have to go, well, geez, dude, I mean, you did pretty much all you could do to try to, or did you offer him $2 more than what Joey Votto's contract was worth? And let's take it for inflation too. Joey Votto's contract, adjusted for inflation today, you would be even higher than that. So until I see numbers, stop playing these games, Reds. How about make your roster better?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I agree with you. I think it's a silly PR battle, but I also think it is just a precursor to tell us, like, yeah, that right. Elly De La Cruz thing is never happening, just so you know.
It was never going to happen, unfortunately.
No, it wasn't going to, but this was the first time I feel like it's actually been kind of publicly acknowledged that this ain't going to happen.
Right.
Because to your point, if the Reds had really put together an impressive package for him and he turned them down legitimately, that's what they would put out there. They would put out the figures. They would put out how close and how legitimate they were on their side. They wouldn't put out the Joey Votto line.
And I go back to this again, the whole Kyle Schwarber thing. You were willing to spend $130 million, supposedly.
So spend it.
So spend it.
Right. And that's where it all falls apart. All right, let's get some Ask Any Anything.
Let's do it.
What do you guys think about the point shaving scandal in college basketball?
So I got asked this on a show last week. That the question was posed to me: is it happening more because gambling is more prevalent and is legalized, or was it happening more that we just didn't know about because the books that are catching these? Because it's the books that are catching them. Like,
Right.
that first half bet on a Robert Morris NKU line was $256,000. Did these idiots not think that was going to raise a red flag? No matter, because you think, okay, I'm going to spread it around. I'm going to go this book for this much, this book for that much, this book for this much, this book for that much. Again, they all commingle to some degree of hey, here's the money coming in. We can see it's coming into these books. We got to change our line too, because that's how this point spread changes, is because of bets coming in. You don't think that wasn't going to raise a red flag, you idiots?
Right. There's about, I don't know, maybe $10,000 total bet on a normal Horizon League game, and you're betting $250,000 on a half.
The other part to this too is, I think in the days when you went through the bookmaker wasn't going to accept bets like that. Like if you said, I'm going to bet $20,000 on a first half line, he'd go, I'll let you bet $20 on the first half line.
Right.
So yeah, do I think it's more prevalent? I don't. I mean, we've had point shaving scandals dating back to the 1940s. We had one in the 40s. We had some in the 50s. We had some in the 60s. We had Headache Smith in the 90s. We had Boston College in the 80s. So these have happened. I think they come to light more because now you're able to red flag it from the legalized books.
Yeah. The difference is now the small ones are getting caught. We used to have the big scandals that were big enough to get caught because it was at that type of level where
Right.
the feds were involved and everyone knows what's going on and eventually you get caught. That used to happen. Now the difference is every idiot who has a cousin who said, hey, I got a great idea for us, let's try this, is now getting caught on these smaller versions of it. And so it's becoming more headline news. I'll tell you this, the biggest difference between betting being legalized and it not being legalized is we just didn't know any of this was going on before. But it was, I mean, Skinny, this was 100% happening, especially on the smaller scale stuff. Like you didn't know Marquise Hastings from Robert Morris that didn't take a shot in the first half against NKU was shaving points that night.
Right.
But it was still happening before. Is it easier for them to do now? Yes, but what it's easier for them to do is to be dumb about it with a local guy. Like the pros in New Jersey and the mobs that are involved in the stuff, they're doing it the same way and they're better at hiding it than the guys that are getting on DraftKings. They've been handling the business the same way for decades now. The kids on DraftKings that are getting a bad idea from their friend back home about how we're going to get each other rich real quick, those are the dudes that are getting caught now and why it's becoming more of a prevalent thing.
So I did read a column, and I'm not so sure. I actually do agree with it. Is, back in the day, you also didn't have MEAC games and Horizon League games, and a lot of the mid majors weren't even on the board. They weren't even bettable games. Of taking those back off the board, because almost all these bets on these fixed games that just occurred were all on these like outlier North Carolina A&T, Alabama A&M that nobody's paying any attention to, because they're realizing nobody's paying any attention to it, so nobody's going to know if this guy's shaving or not.
Yeah, it's like that's how it's easier to get away with it initially, but also easier to be caught because the dollar amounts are going to be obvious at some point.
On rando games.
Right. Here's my question. This is a real thing now too, especially because you don't know your players like you used to. Like you don't know them personally, right? Think about Donovan O'Day, for instance, for NKU. Darren Horn told us a story the other night on air that they had like one phone call before Donovan O'Day committed to NKU. And it's worked out great for them, right?
Yeah, he's been great.
You don't know if that guy's going to be a good guy. Anyone can fool you in one phone call. It's not 3 years of meeting your entire family and going through the process of recruiting you and then watching you grow up for the next 2-3 years in your program like recruiting used to be. So here's what I want to know. How paranoid do you think head coaches are when you start to see Joe Smith, your shooting guard, chuck stupid shots, or he throws the ball out of bounds, or it seems like he's dogging on defense? How paranoid do you start getting going, do I got to take this guy? Is he shaving points tonight? Do I need to take him out? What's going on here? I would be thinking about that all the time now.
I would too. And I don't think it's unfair to think that, to be honest with you.
It's not. I mean, if one of your guys comes out and is clearly playing like crap or looks like he's dogging it, how are you not going to start to think, is this guy on the take? Should we get him out of here or what? Like, really? There's got to be some coaches that are thinking that, especially on the East Coast. You get one of the Hurleys involved or something, that's exactly where their mind's going first. All right, here's the next question. Which one of the 4 TV color analysts from the NFL playoff games over the weekend did you enjoy the most? I guess this was from Lance. The guy who sent it to us said it was from Lance. So I don't know if he talked about this or what. But you got Troy Aikman, Tom Brady, Chris Collinsworth, and Tony Romo. I'll admit, I didn't really hear 2 of the broadcasts. So.
No, I heard them, but you know what I do with broadcasts? It's the analysis is background noise to me. It really is. That probably isn't fair, but that's really what it is. I mean, a lot of people get up in arms about analysts, and everybody thinks they're against their team. I can't remember what game. Oh, it was the Kentucky-Tennessee game over the weekend. Jay Billis was the analyst. I think Jay is really good. And I always go to a UK message board just to see what the fan reaction is after games, win or lose, and just kind of that. And a bunch of them were on there about the commentators were biased. And I'm like, did you listen to the same game I listened to? I mean, I am a Kentucky grad and all, but I didn't think he came off as biased whatsoever. And it just, for me, a lot of times it is background noise. I probably listen to college basketball guys more than the NFL guys. Because honestly, a lot of them just, they repeat what I already saw.
Yeah, I find there's not a lot of, and it's weird, like Herb Street is great at this. I think he tells you what happened in a play or makes me smarter. Like, hey, here's why that play worked, or here's what happened on the back end of the defense that made that hole open up or something. I think he's really good at that. In the NFL, I think most of the broadcasters are really poor at that. I don't think there's any real good analysts that are like, I mean, back in the day, everyone made fun of Madden and stuff, but at least you had the telestrator working and there was like more diagramming going on and talking about the games. Now it feels like it's a lot more vibes and guys just reciting cliches, trying to sound a certain way. I don't know. I don't love it. Out of those guys, though, I think, honestly, he takes a lot of hate, but I like Chris Collinsworth. I think Collinsworth does a good job.
With you. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, there's occasionally
times he's good this weekend.
I'll yell back at the TV like, what are you talking about? But no, I'm with you. I do too. I know Bengals fans especially, I guess he grates on their nerves because he's not a rah-rah Bengals guy. He's not paid to be, guys.
Right. Yeah, I think he would be my top. And then honestly, I used to not like him much. I don't love his sound specifically, but I think he's actually a pretty good broadcaster. Troy Aikman is the guy that I think is most consistent out of those other 3. The other 2, Brady doesn't do much for me at all yet.
For me at all either.
Romo is just so hit or miss. Like when he has a good moment, he can be fun to listen to because of the guessing what play is going to happen, and there's other stuff. I mean, he gets all the hype because of that, but there's other things he says that are sometimes interesting stories from when he was playing quarterback or whatever, where I think he can be really good. There are other times where he seems like he doesn't know what to say. He gets swept up in the emotion, and he's just making noises and never shutting up the entire game.
Right.
So is that you're going Collinsworth?
Collinsworth. Yeah.
All right. I like this. This is kind of a piggyback question. Which local media member that doesn't currently broadcast sporting events would be best at it?
I don't know, because I guess I got to hear him first.
I've got an immediate name in mind. I don't want to say it yet. I want to see who you bring up.
Okay, so this would be a broadcaster, not like a player that would go into broadcasting. This is a current broadcaster.
This would be like a local media member. It says local media member, so I don't think it has to be just sports, but I would mostly think of sports guys, I guess. That would be good at calling play-by-play.
I think Joe Danneman would be.
That's exactly number 1 on my list, without a doubt, is Joe Danneman. I think he'd be really good at play-by-play.
Yeah, I do too. He'd do his homework.
Yep.
I mean, he'd do it the right way. When I'm coaching the kids at St. Xavier do broadcasts with me, I'll even tell them, you need to go out of your way to go ask people how to pronounce their name, or ask coaches how kids' names are pronounced. You can't just wing it, man. It's not, if their parent is watching and you mess up the last name, if you mess it up because you asked the coach, well, then shame on the coach. But if you didn't bother to go ask and you messed it up, shame on you.
Yeah. No, I think Danneman would be really good. He's got the sound, the presence. The other thing, you can just hear it all the time when he does those like feature stories on the news about someone. He's really good at setting the stage, setting the scene, using his language to do all of that. And he has a good sound. I think he'd be great at play-by-play.
Yeah,
I'm a little surprised he never ended up in that route at some point.
Yeah, I mean, he's a Syracuse alum too, so I'm guessing he did something there.
Yeah,
or maybe he's just on a TV route. I don't know. I'll have to ask him at some point.
I mean, he's been really successful, so it's not like he needed to do it, but
Right.
I think he'd be really good. I didn't even have another name that came to mind when I thought, I mean, it was immediately to me, I was like, oh, Joe Danneman would be really good. And I
Yeah,
didn't.
I can't. Yeah, I can't bring another one to mind either. To be honest with you.
Yeah. All right. And then we'll wrap it up with this one. What's something you used to care way too much about that you don't care about at all anymore?
That's a great question. I guess I used to be emotionally invested in my teams, like a lot of fans are. And honestly, anymore, maybe it's because I coach and I'm more emotionally invested in that because I have a direct um, encounter with it, if you will, and I can control some of those things. I just don't get emotional about wins and losses for my team anymore. I just don't.
You don't think you doing the media thing played a big role in that?
Probably. I'll give you some of that, but I mean, like I covered Kentucky for 5 years, and I didn't live and die with them winning games because I covered them. But after I stopped covering them for probably a period of time, I did, and then I just didn't. And I don't know why that. Why I don't know. It was because I hated Cal so much, and it just was hard to root for him.
That played a role in your Kentucky fandom, I think, for sure.
Probably, yeah, probably. But like, I grew up a Bengals fan. I mean, I did. My dad was a season ticket holder. I went to games since we moved back to this area in 1975. I went to every home game from 1975 up until I got out of college, and even went to some games with him then. So I can remember they lost the 1975 playoff game, and I cried like a baby. I was 12 years old, cried like a baby because they lost. And just at some point, maybe it's because they just sucked the life out of things in the 90s, and it made my dad bitter at them. He dropped his season tickets eventually. That I went, yeah, to hell with this family. They've ruined football for my father. For me now, I really don't. I'm not emotionally invested because I'm working in the business, and I can't be, and I don't need to be. But yeah, just for what I think the media did play some role in that, Rick, but not all of it. I'll be honest with you.
For me, the thing about the media, and a lot of people will tell you that, like when you're getting in it too, is like, oh, don't if you're a sports fan, don't cover sports because you'll hate it. It becomes your job. You'll lose the passion for sports. That never happened to me. I don't like sports any less than I did. I'm not any less interested in wanting to watch sports, play sports, any of that stuff. But it's inevitable. There's something about being that close to it, meeting the people as actual people, realizing that there's like real world stuff happening in people's lives. And like, hey, some of the people that work for your favorite team are jerks. Right. Some of them are terrible humans. Some of them are really good people. Like all of those things that you come to learn about. Like sometimes someone's a really good person and then that organization fires them and you don't like that part. So there's just the human aspect of it that makes it harder to be a real fan that's totally fanatic. You have to be irrational. You have to put the human element aside a lot and be kind of look at the players and the coaches as just out there for your entertainment purposes and not real people. And once you get in the aspect of them being real people, I think it becomes a little bit harder to be totally invested in whether they won or lost the game or not.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I have a hard time anymore just watching a college basketball game that doesn't involve UC, Xavier, or Kentucky. I don't know why that is. It feels like every game looks the same to me anymore. I hate that feeling.
So that to me is the transfer portal, and I agree with that. I find it very hard to want to turn on a random game on Saturdays. I do still, but I agree with you. I'm losing, and part of it too is now that I have a kid, there's just more pressure to spend my time in other ways.
Sure.
But you turn on a game and it's like, you're right. They all kind of look the same. It's a bunch of mid-major players who transferred up to the high major level. I don't know who's on their team from year to year. It's a different team. There's no built-in storylines or rivalries between the two teams that are playing. So it's just kind of like, it's just another game. I'm with you on that. I think that's where the transfer portal has really hurt the casual fandom. It's almost like you have to be very invested into your team all the time. And when your team's not playing, it's harder to get into the sports with the transfer portal, I think.
And I'll be honest, I felt fortunate to some degree on Saturday. I watched the Kentucky game and then left. I think it was on ESPN2, whatever. It was on one of the ESPNs. I think it was on ESPN2. And Florida Vandy was on after it. So I just left it on. It turned out to be a great game. And I got actually, wrapped up in it because it was such a great game. But after that, it melded into football. And I really didn't feel compelled to turn on any other basketball after that. I don't know why. It just, I just don't have that. Like tonight, or Thursday night, there's not a lot of great games in college basketball. I don't even feel compelled to turn one on. I'll watch a show or something probably. It's awful.
Yeah, that is not, I don't like that aspect of where sports is headed. And that never used to be the case for me. And I don't think it's anything about me that's changed. I don't think like I like basketball any less than I used to. I just think, to your point, that you said it best when you said everything feels the same when I turn it on. That's what it is, because there's no storylines, there's no rivalries. They're all 1-year mercenaries that are going to be somewhere else the next year. And I'm not mad about that part of it, but it's just the truth from an entertainment and storyline standpoint, and being bought in on wanting to watch it.
Offenses look a lot alike. People are just chucking up threes left and right. It just doesn't, I don't know. It just doesn't have a good feel for me.
Yep. All right. That's all we got.
All right, I got one more here off of email.
Oh, okay.
Says, if you could cover any NFL team and not have to worry about moving or living in that city, which team would you choose? Do some teams treat reporters better than others? Would you pick a perennial contender or a circus like Cleveland?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah, I wouldn't pick the circuses. The circus does give these usually 17 weeks of content. Like, the worst thing you can be is the up and down team. Like, it's hard to ride that wave. I mean, like, even like this year, though, I think most of us on the beat checked out after the Pittsburgh loss at Pittsburgh. Like, this team's not making the playoffs. And then you got a guy brought back in with the Baltimore win, and you're thinking, okay, maybe they can do something. And then the Buffalo loss happens, and at that point, you're almost completely mathematically eliminated. So you just kind of checked out. And then the last 3 weeks when they were basically all but eliminated, I mean, I was completely checked out for the last 3 weeks. I'm not going to lie to you. There was nothing worth really covering on that team. Nothing of interest, to be quite frank. But to answer this question, this is a good one. I like the Charlotte area, but Panthers don't do much for me. I'll be honest. The Ravens media relations people are awesome. I mean, they do transcribing of player quotes and coaches quotes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's top notch. I think, and I like my visits to Baltimore. I'd say probably covering the Ravens and living somewhere in the Baltimore suburbs. But yeah, I would go with the Ravens, to be honest. They're a good franchise. They make playoff runs. I think I'd go with the Ravens.
And this guy said you didn't even have to worry about living there, right? Like,
no. He said, hang on, I've now lost. He said, oh yeah, moving or living in that city.
Yeah, so you don't even have to. So you don't have to live there if you don't want to. It's just the idea of covering the team. But sounds like you'd be fine with Baltimore either way. So the part about like teams treating media members differently, how much variation is there in your opinion? Like when you go from stadium to stadium.
We were absolutely flabbergasted when we went to Buffalo for the playoff game a few years ago, and we realized that they're not going to transcribe every player's at the locker room. That's your job usually. Some teams do. The Bengals do. The Bengals send out not all the, like if a player stays in the locker room for 8 minutes and talks, they'll maybe put 6 or 7 questions. But they do. The Bengals are one of the few teams that do. So we go to Buffalo, and we came to find out after the game that they don't transcribe the coach or the quarterback. Everybody transcribes at least the coach and the quarterback because they're at the podium. Right. We found out they didn't do that. We're like, what the hell? So this year, literally, before they went to play Buffalo, bunch of us didn't make the trip because you had to decide, I think at that point, are you in or out? Because they're going to make the playoffs. Is it worth going? Right. But we still were covering the games remotely. And so like the Thursday of that week, I said, hey, do you know if Buffalo still doesn't transcribe? And the guy said, well, I'll find out. Sent a message. He said, no, they don't. I said, all right, I'll take care of this. I'll send a transcribe list out for Zach and for Joe. And if for some reason Jamar Chase has a big game, goes to the podium, anybody at the podium will transcribe as a group. Other than that, the people on site, you do your job. We don't share those quotes with us. That's all fair and good. But yeah, Buffalo was flabbergasting that they just didn't do that. I don't know why they didn't do that.
Well, especially in an AI world where it literally takes one person probably 15 minutes to get the transcript, put it into an AI, and then clean it up a little bit. I don't understand how that's not an automatic thing.
I will tell you, you've covered NCAA tournaments, but yes. I'll tell you what, back in the early 2000s at NCAA tournament sites, they did not have that transcription service they use now. So
really?
Oh my gosh.
When did that come in?
Probably the late 2000s. But in the early 2000s.
Interesting. Because I remember my first NCAA tournament I covered, I guess that would have been the Xavier losing to Marquette with Tu Holloway in Cleveland year. And I remember I was like that was the first time I'd ever had anything transcribed for me in terms of quotes. And I was just like, wait, they do it for, like, they came back and handed us the whole packet of everyone's press conference quotes. I couldn't believe it. It was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen as a journalist. Only been covering like local high school stuff and a little bit of Xavier.
Well, I think it was what year did Michigan State win? 2000 or 99, whatever that was. I think it was the 99 or 2000 tournament. The year Kenny Martin broke his leg.
Yeah, 99, right? 99 into 2000. So it would have been 2000, I think, that they won.
Okay, so 99, 2000 season. That's right. So Kentucky was playing up in Cleveland. And so I was covering Kentucky. And my sports editor, rightfully, he said, can you just do a story on Michigan? Because Michigan State got the 1 seed when Kenyon broke his leg. And they were playing up there. He goes, can you do a story from asking Michigan State how fortunate they feel to have gotten the 1 seed? And so I had to transcribe. They had 4 players. Tom Izzo, I had to do all that and my Kentucky stuff. It took longer to transcribe than it did to write stories. I mean, it was crazy.
By far, the best thing that's happened in journalism in the last, I don't know, I've only been around for 2 decades, so I'll say 2 decades, is AI transcription. Because it completely changed. It almost made me want to get out of writing altogether because I hated transcription so much. Really? There were a lot of things I just wouldn't even put quotes in for because I was like, none of it's interesting. I'm not going to take the time to do it. I'd rather write something more interesting. Now it's like with AI, you can have all that done in a few minutes. Just clean it up a little bit after the fact and you're good to go.
No, you're right, for sure.
All right.
That's all we got. Thanks very much. For Rick Boring, I'm Richard Skinner. It's been the Skinny Podcast, the weekly potpourri edition, presented by Blake, the Attorney Maislin.